All right, welcome to ERDs and modeling relationships with Ruby. By the end of this relationship, by the end of this lesson, I hope that you will be able to model a one-to-many relationship with an ERD, and I hope you'll be able to model that same relationship with Ruby. Cool. So let's talk about what we mean by relationship. So a relationship is referring to ownership, having collections of things. So I am one Kyle and I have many things. Each of my many things has one Kyle. So we would describe that as a one-to-many relationship. As you might be able to just infer from the name, there's also one-to-one relationships and many-to-many relationships. However, one-to-many relationship, that's your bread and butter. That's your 90% of relationships or some variation on a one-to-many. So let's think of some things that could have one-to-many relationships. I'll give you a couple more. You could say that this is my little cup holder. So one cup holder has one pencil holder has a bunch of pens and pencils in it. Each of these is only in one of these. It can't be in more than one cup holder thing at the same time. That's a one-to-many relationship. I could say that my keyboard, one keyboard has many keys. Every key on that keyboard only belongs to one keyboard. The same key can't be on more than one keyboard. One-to-many relationship. So I would like you to think of 3 things that can have one-to-many relationships. I want you to write them down, and I want you to slack them to me. Go. All right, slack me what you got. All right, so we got libraries to books, like copies of books, yeah. A single book only exists in one library, can't be in more than one library at the same time. We'll take that. Car dealership to cars. Yeah. Car can't be in more than one dealership at the same time. One to many. Book to pages. Love it. One book has many pages. Each page is only in one book. Players to team. Good one. These players only on one team. The team has a bunch of players. I can have many cats, but my cats only have me as an owner. Yep. Ford has a bunch of different models of cars. It's got Fiesta, Taurus, all that kind of stuff. But a Taurus, it's only, there's not a Toyota Taurus. Only belongs to one auto manufacturer. Good. One house to many tenants. That's good. Each tenant can only be in one house, but one house has a bunch of tenants. Flatiron School has many students, but students have only one Flatiron School. I like it. Whoa, one gen to many bikes. Very good. All right, so we're starting to get the idea here. Look through the rest of these real quick. Author to book. It's good. Book only has one author. But that's a really good alley-oop into what the boundaries of this are. Let's say that book had more than one author. Zoinks. How does that work? Like, let's see.
A lot of research books will have multiple contributors.
Yep. Eric Freeman and Elizabeth Freeman, that's who wrote this. It's also not the only book that they wrote. Well, shit. How am I going to model that?
So just change into like a many to many relationship.
That's what a many to many relationship is. So if I have a bunch of dogs, but each dog only has me as an owner, that's a one to many relationship. If I have a bunch of dogs and my wife has a bunch of dogs, and so those dogs have more than one owner, now we've got a many to many relationship. So that's the boundary on our one to many. We're not going to talk anymore about many to manys today, but if you find something that you can't really seem to model correctly with a one to many, that might be what you're looking for. So our first objective is modeling this relationship with an ERD. And that looks like this. So what I'm looking at right now says birthplace and people. Well, we'll call it city. So we could say that one city has many people in it. That's how you read that. One city, many people. This is called crow's feet notation because it's like crow's feet. Caw, caw. So the one with the slash on it, that's the one side. The one with the crow's feet, that's the many side. A lot of times they'll leave the little one side off. So it'll just look like that. It means the exact same thing. One to many. Questions about this? So this by itself, not too crazy. What gets wild is when we start doing models off of those models off of those models. One to many, 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 3 times. That's where this gets tricky. Now, like this is a whole discipline. It's called data modeling. And it happens to be one of my favorite fucking things in the whole GD world. I got a whole degree in it. This is pretty much as far as we get in this program. Worth knowing that like it does get more complicated, and especially like the one-to-ones and many-to-manys and stuff, like understanding how, like at a deeper level, how to work with those, that's beneficial. But 15-week program, that didn't make the cut, and I kind of have a hard time disagreeing with it. So right now, if you can readily recognize a one-to-many relationship in an ERD and make an ERD to represent that, that's a pretty damn good place to start. More questions about data modeling with ERDs?
Do you have any suggestions for literature if you want to go deeper in modeling?
That's a great question.
Just
I found so few things that aren't literal textbooks. So, let's see. Let me see if I recognize any of these. I've done this beginning database design book before. That one's pretty good. This one's pretty good too. Data modeling and database design. Let's see, is there any no starch publishing stuff? Yeah, I'd say you probably can't go wrong with too many of these. That's my recommendation. What else? Cool. Let's get rubied. So let's say I want to do city and people. Everyone's from exactly one place, but any one place has all kinds of people in it. So let's make Ruby city relationship. All right. So I've got this empty folder here. Nothing up this sleeve. Nothing up this sleeve. Don't follow along with this, by the way. We're going to make a city.rb file. We're going to make a person.rb file. And then we're going to make an environment file that pulls them all together. In our environment RB file, we'll require in pry, and then we will require in city and person. How come I put the / in front of city and person, but not pry?
Pry is a gem, and city and person are folders or files.
There we go. Very nice. That's exactly why. If it's some file that we wrote, it's got to start with a dot or a ... If it's some gem, nothing in front of it. It's a common pattern, by the way.
My question is, why didn't you have to do require relative?
Require relative, I don't think you have to do the dot slash anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can just do this. It's fine. Require relative, I believe, also works with entire folders, and I don't think require does.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
quote me on that, but that's my guess. All right, so for my city class, let's start with that. And then for our person class, we'll just start with that. Easy enough. So now I can make things like Bellevue equals city.new. I can say that Kyle equals person.new. Awesome. Pretty basic stuff. Questions so far? Let's see, and who's someone else who's from Bellevue? My buddy Tom. Tom's from Bellevue too. Cool. So let's say I want to make some like initializers for these. So I say def initialize, and city is going to take in a name. We'll assign it. Do a similar thing with person. I'll do first name and last name. All right, cool. Over here, okay, doing all right so far. Should be able to run this file. Yep, something it didn't like. All right, hey, Kyle, who are you? Oh, that. Hey, Tom, who are you? Oh, what's Bellevue? There we go. So I've made these two independent classes. I've made a few objects with them. Now I need to do the relationship. So a couple different ways I could do this. Come on now. There we go. So I could do something like have the city keep track of a bunch of people. So I could initialize citizens. And then I could do something like add person, takes in a person, and I do like citizens shovel person. Okay, that kind of works. Problem with doing it this way though, can anybody tell what it is?
You're limiting your scope by using an instance variable to store the citizens, or no?
I would say you're about halfway there. What if I want to ask Kyle and Tom where their hometown is? How do I do that?
So you don't have a getter method?
Good call. And while I'm at it, okay. Now, if I want to ask Kyle and Tom, where are you from? How do I do that?
You'd have to have that info. If you wanted to specifically target like the person, you'd have to code that into the person
Yeah.
class. Because right now you can only look up what the citizens of the city are. You can't look it up by the
Right.
person.
It's all from the city's perspective. I can't just say, hey, Kyle, where are you from? You know, hold on, let me get the city real quick. That can't be right. So I could also store it on the person. I could put city there, and I could have like an add city method that takes in a city and does something like city equals city. Okay. So that sort of works. Here's the big problem. Now I'm keeping track of that in 2 places. That's something we always want to stay away from in programming. Multiple sources of truth. Because at some point, those things are going to disagree with each other. And that's a problem. If I say I'm from Bellevue, but Bellevue doesn't list me as a citizen, all of a sudden I can't trust anything in my application anymore. Oof. How am I going to get around that?
You need to make a third class.
Ooh, very interesting. What would the third class do?
It'd be kind of like that dog owner example from a few lessons ago, a few days ago. It would be like city resident, I guess. Or
Yeah. So we could absolutely do that. However, that would be a many-to-many relationship. That'd be like if I could live in more than one place. That's what we would do. If it's just one-to-many, it's a little easier than that, luckily. So if I'm not keeping track of it on the city anymore, what can I do?
Would you make it a state or an attribute for person specifically?
It is right now. I still have this.
Hmm.
How do I add a person to a city then? We've got like everything we need to do this. I know it's Friday. I know your brain is on fire. This is it. This is a big thing right here. What do I put inside this method?
Can you do person with a capital P? Dot new or dot name?
But they're giving me the person. I have a person instance that I'm getting passed. Can I do something with that person instance? Is there a method I could call?
Find their city.
So I'm trying to add someone to the city.
It's not stored yet.
Would it be if the person matches the like the city that's in there on the person matches the name of the city of this class, then it would add it?
So you're getting close. We're going to do something kind of like that to figure out who the citizens of the city are. But how do I, for lack of a better term, enroll a citizen?
Did you do city? Did you do city.new?
So it's going to be something like Bellevue dot add person Kyle, add person Tom. That's how I'm going to use this. So I
Well, we
already
need-
have an instance of the city. I already have the instance of the people. Is there anything I can do?
Do you
Would you
need to
call
make that?
self?
Right? Sorry, good.
I was going to say, could you call self?
Self is going to be part of this solution.
Okay.
You need to make the class like a class variable citizens, like an at citizens.
Nope, good guess. What if what might I call on person?
You can call probably .map on it.
So .map is something we do with hashes and arrays. Person is an object. Let me ask you this question. What methods can I call right now on person?
.new.
I can call .new. What else can I call?
Add city.
Add city.
I can call add city. What else can I call?
First name, last name.
Cool. So those are the 4 methods that I can call other than like the other object built-ins.
Person dot first name. No. Oh.
Good guess.
Person dot add city.
Hey, there we go.
Okay.
And then what city am I adding?
Self.
Yes,
Okay.
that's it. Stare at that for a little while. Actually, like, I'm going to give you like a little minute. I want you to just look at that and like wrap your brain around it. 1 minute on the clock, go.
Can you click back to person for a second? Person.rb.
Yeah, I'll copy it over so you can see it all at the same time. That's how it's getting used.
So what happens if they move and then you can do, city? Well, right now it's just readers. You can't update it.
Mm-hmm.
If you were updating the city, would you have to then do city add person to update the city, like remove them or something or add them?
Well, so really what we could do is we could make this a writer or just make an accessor. And that's the same as doing this like that. Exact same thing. And then instead of saying add city, just say city equals. That's fine. But we can also use that exact same thing to change it down the road.
So if you were to write that out long way, it would be like Bellevue.Kyle.addCity. Kyle?
Not quite.
You weren't using the function, just to like, okay.
So I have an instance of city called Bellevue. I'm calling the add person method. That takes in an argument of a person object. I'm giving it Kyle. And I'm taking that Kyle and I'm setting its city property equal to me.
Does the instance of Kyle have to already exist for that to work?
Yes.
Okay.
We make a new city. We make new people. We add the people to the city.
Before you had it as add city self there instead of person.city.
So the thing I had before was that, and it worked like that. But since it's really just, all it's doing is setting a property, that's a writer.
Because self right there is referring back to Bellevue, which is
Correct,
how that
exactly. Because Bellevue is the thing that we're calling add person on. But if I had another city called Redmond, and my mom and I do Redmond, then in that one, self is going to be Redmond. That's the magic of it. It references whatever we're calling it on.
And so you're only going to be using that add city within the context of the city class when you add person.
Yep.
And you do it in the city because it's the city that has the many people.
Correct. Now, actually, we could do it the other way around. That's kind of one of the coolest parts about this. Let's say I didn't do Redmond add person Linda. Let's say I did Linda.city equals Redmond. Produces the exact same result. We could do it from either direction. Which one you do? Well, that depends on which perspective we're solving the problem from. Are we from the perspective of the city and we're adding people to it? Or the perspective of the person and we're changing their city? Either way.
In a real world scenario, I imagine that's probably like a decision that your design team would sort of all agree on at some point in the process, like how that information would get added.
It's usually not a problem. It's usually pretty obvious which way you would do it.
Okay.
And regardless, they produce the same result. Questions so far? Cool. So now the challenge is, let's see, I'm going to copy this back over. So now the challenge is, how do I get my citizens? Gonna need to add some code for this. If I want to find out everybody who lives in Bellevue, I want to find out everybody who lives in Redmond. How's that gonna work?
You're going to need some sort of an array. When you add the person, it gets stored into that array.
Yeah. So, but the thing we're trying to get away from is two sources of truth. I want to keep track of where people live on that person and in the city. That's a no-no. So how am I going to do it then?
I was thinking do a person.all.select.
Yeah. So I could do something like person.all.select, and now I can filter down to only people, what's the condition?
People that match that specific. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Oh no, go ahead.
Would it be self, since you're looking for people who are from that city? Person that all that's,
Self is what?
well, when you call on it, it would be like Bellevue.citizens. So it would be person.all. That's like do person dot city equals Bellevue.
Then it'll only work for Bellevue.
Equals self.
It equals self.
There we go. That's it. Pretty cool. Person.all though, we just listed everything you can call on this. All wasn't one of them.
So you need to add all as a class variable or class method.
Porque no los dos. Make it a class variable, and we can make it a class method that just returns the class variable. Cool. Now we got an all.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
In some of the labs I was doing, they were, I don't know if it was just to help you gain an understanding or because it's like best practice, but when you have like that self.all function, in some of them they were also asking to make a save function that would be self.class.all, and I saw that pop up then a few times.
You will never do that in real life. Don't
Okay,
think
that's
about it.
just to get you to understand. Okay,
Correct.
I think it was the dog lab.
Cool. I wonder if it works. All right. If I do Bellevue.citizens, womp womp, Redmond.citizens, womp womp. All right, let's see where it went wrong.
So do you have to add them into the all array?
There we go. So every time I make a new person, why don't you throw that in that array for me? That's what that says. Hey, Bellevue, who are your citizens? Oh, just Kyle and Tom, that's who. Hey, Redmond, who are your citizens? Just little old Linda Coverly, 75 years old. And look, we even did it different ways. Still works. Single source of truth.
Could you go over like how would this question be phrased in order for us to know that this is what you want? Like, can you think of the scenario of how the question would be worded?
It would be something like, I want you to build an application that keeps track of which people are from which cities. And so your like little analyst brain goes, all right, so the nouns in that are person and city. I probably want classes for that. Then you go, all right, does one person have many cities? No, that doesn't sound right. Is a person a city? That's a one-to-one relationship. No, that doesn't make any sense. Does one city have many people? Yeah, that sounds about right. Cool. And then the next thing you think is, all right, so the person on the many side of that, that's where I'm going to, store what the technical term is key. That's where I'm going to store that relationship. You always store it on the many side, not the one side. You always store it on the many side, not the one side. You always store it on the many side. at the one side. When you're trying to figure out where you're keeping track of a relationship, many sides where you put it, not the one side.
So the many side is essentially the database.
Yep, but like the whole thing is the database because we're also keeping track of all the cities we make and keeping track of all the people we make and keeping track of all the dogs for those people and like all that kind of shit. But the reference to that relationship, that's the thing that's stored on the many side. Cool. Ask me more questions. It's gonna be your turn in a sec.
So to test these, you would say like the specified, like in the case of, hold on add person, you would specify the specific like Bellevue and then add person, like that's the syntax on it so that you can test if that method works?
Yep.
Okay.
So I take some instance of the city that I made with this class. I call its instance method add person, which I wrote right here. And it takes in an instance of a person. Now, I said this on the second day, but you can be forgiven for not remembering it. It's the instance, not the name. This is like the most common mistake we see in the first week. It's not the string Kyle. It's the instance of person that's Kyle. So I pass that instance in, and it goes, all right, well, I'm going to take that instance, and I'm going to call its city equals method and pass in me, Bellevue. That's how these classes pretzel together.
There aren't really cases where you would say like the method first and then whatever you're specifying?
Yeah, if you're writing JavaScript. But so in Ruby and all object-oriented languages, it's object.method,
Okay.
always. In JavaScript and lots of other languages, we can have standalone methods that aren't attached to objects or classes or anything. Not the case in Ruby.
Okay.
But yeah, if you were in the functional programming lesson, and which you will be in 12 weeks, then that would be something more like add person Bellevue Kyle. Not today.
Get back to person just a second.
Yep. Cool, your turn. So here's what I'm gonna do. Oh no, I deleted that. Oh no, it's not there anymore. Oh no, that's not there anymore. Well, bye, bye, gone. And I'm gonna leave this stuff in there. Oh no, I totally screwed up the repo. So I've got these 3 files in here. I'm gonna make this a Git repo with Git init. I'm gonna add all these things. I'm gonna commit them. Then I'm gonna go over to GitHub. I'm gonna make a new repo. And we'll call this Ruby OO relationships city person. I'm gonna make that repo. I'm gonna grab this Git URL. I'm going to add that as the origin, the remote origin of this repo. I'm gonna git push origin mester. It's pushed. It's on GitHub now. And then I'm going to send each and every one of you this URL. And you are going to go to that URL. After you do so, you can fork it. Doesn't really matter. You can fork it first if you'd like. But the important thing is you're going to click the big green thing that says code, and you're going to clone it. Git clone, and then whatever this URL is. So git clone, something like that. You're going to run it, and then you have this code. And it's going to be up to you to establish the relationship. We're going to do that for a couple minutes, and then we're going to do it again together, and we're going to answer some questions. So, but first, 6 minutes. Go.
I forgot, did you have it the other way around? Like I know that the person would produce first, last name, and city. When you called the city a city variable or a city instance, was that just giving you the city or also the citizens? Up, you're muted. Oh, you muted Cal.
Oops. Yeah, if you call person.city, the thing that you get back is the instance of the city. So like Kyle.city would give you back like the instance Bellevue. All right, pencils down. If you'd be so kind, could you please Slack me? Let's see. Let's take a look at these files. Slack me the contents of your person file and your city file, please. Go. I want to see how we did. What's up, Duncan? Hey, Duncan, do you want to say hi to my students? All right, that's fine.
Sorry, Kyle, how did you want that again?
Just Slack them over to me. Your city file and your person file.
So Kyle, I'm still a little confused how on the person class it says there's an accessor for city, but then city is not even on on there at all.
But isn't there? So if there's
it says on the city one, but
so if I do something like this, this is exactly like if I did something like def city that returned at city, and I had a city equals this, and this line of code are identical. So I haven't initialized with a city, but I can still have one. If I try just making like Kyle equals person.new Kyle C. So, and I do Kyle.city, it just comes back as nil. Still there though. Looking at your submissions. Made pretty good progress on this overall. Let's talk through it again. Please. Good. 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 Outstanding. Good job all around. Okay, so I want to be able to add a person to a city, add a city to a person. Right now, this like Linda.city equals Redmond, that works just fine because of this accessor. Over in the city, if I want to be able to add a person, okay, we can infer even just from the name of it that I need to give it a person as a argument. Awesome. And then let's see, Terrell, can you give me an idea for what I need to do inside this method to add the city to the person?
Would you do city?
So keep in mind, I'm in the city right now. That's the class that I'm in. And this is an instance method, so I'm inside Bellevue or Redmond or whatever.
So self.
Yep, so well, what am I gonna do with self?
Person dot self?
Person dot, not person dot self, person dot.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
All right. That. Terrell, can you give me a shot at why that works?
Because you're grabbing that person and getting it into the city, but the city equals basically city.
Yeah, it equals me. And I'm Bellevue. I'm Redmond. That's what self is inside of this method. So I'm calling the city method on Kyle and giving it, actually I'm calling the city equals method on Kyle and giving it Bellevue as an argument. That's how that works. Oops. So over on the person side, that accessor is what gives me a city equals method. Takes in the city, sets the equal to whatever I give it. All right. The one last thing. So this all works. This adds cities to people in either direction. I'm going to do it from the person or the city. On the person side, Linda.city equals Redmond. On the city side, Bellevue add person, we'll give it Kyle. We'll give it Tom. But if I want to be able to say, hey, Bellevue, who are all your citizens? Hey, Redmond, who are all your citizens? Jen, what do I do? You don't have to have the whole thing. Give me a place to start. I'll give you a hint. I need to start keeping track of all of the people. That's one of the steps. How do I do that, Jen?
Wouldn't you need to make an empty array and then shovel it into it?
Absolutely. Talk me through it. What does the empty array get set to?
So it's at all.
Good.
Empty square brackets.
Good.
And then down in the, when you're initializing it, you would call that at all again and then shovel it itself into it.
You're beautiful. Very nice. So now I'm keeping track of all the people. Kyle, can you give me any ideas about how I use this on the city side? Kyle, what do I do next?
I'm honestly not really sure. I felt
Okay.
pretty lost pretty much this whole lesson.
Okay, well, let's unlose you a little bit. So what's the thing that I want to call on like Bellevue or Redmond? It doesn't exist right now, but what will it be called? Bellevue dot what? To give me back all the people.
Citizens.
There we go, cool. So let's make a method called citizens. All right, how do I figure out who all the people in Bellevue are, who all the people in Redmond are? Jen set us up pretty good.
Yeah, you just set it to add all.
Yeah, so it's add all in the person. But I can call that person's all method. So I can say person.all, and that gives me a list of every single person from every single city. Kyle, how am I going to narrow that down to only ones from Bellevue or only ones from Redmond?
Is this citizens.self or?
Almost. So person.all, that gives me a list of every single person. Think enumerables. Which enumerable narrows something down?
So that's select.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And so then what does select take? What do we pass into select? What's the thing with do and end called? Starts with a B.
It's a block.
There we go. So we're going to pass in a block. And then, Kyle, one more thing. Inside of this block, what is select looking for? Like any select.
It's just looking for a condition.
Yes, very nice. So what kind of condition would be true if I'm trying to get everybody from Bellevue?
That the person's city is equal to self.
You're beautiful. Very nice, Kyle. It's exactly what it is. So this should give me everybody from my city. So let's see if it works. If I Ruby environment RB, hey Kyle, where's your city? Oh, it's Bellevue. Yo, Linda, where's your city? Oops, Linda's from Bellevue now apparently as well. Oh shoot, did I overwrite it somewhere? I don't want to see.
Yeah, I think one of the strings.
Oh, it's because I also named it Bellevue. That'll happen. All right, so hey Kyle, who's your city? Bellevue. Hey Linda, who's your city? Redmond. Hey Bellevue, who are your citizens? Kyle and Tom. What about Redmond? Just Linda, little old Linda Coberly. Cool. That's one-to-many relationships. Ask me some questions.
Is it standard for you to have a file for each one of those classes, or would you just have a class file?
Way more sense to have each class in its own file. That's not a hard and fast rule. It doesn't like affect performance or anything. We could absolutely jam the entire thing just into that environment RB file. But in our production app, we're probably not looking at 2 classes. We're probably looking at dozens, hundreds, thousands of classes. Makes a lot more sense to just keep all of those in their own files. More questions?
Kyle, I'm still a little confused on the add person method where you're getting .city from.
So what is person? Give me some examples of what person would be.
Like the names of the person that you're putting in? Or just like a
the instance, not the name. It's not the string Kyle, it's the object Kyle. So we look over here to how this is being used. That's not just my name. That's all of my attributes. Okay, so I get this object in. I'm calling Bellevue.addPerson, and we're passing in the Kyle object. Now, where do you think this city equals method, what do you think that's doing?
It's assigning that instance to the city?
It's assigning Kyle's city to whichever object this is being called on. So self might be Bellevue. Like in this case, there's self. So I'm saying, hey, Kyle, can you do .city? Kyle.city equals Bellevue. That's all that's happening there. Or in this one, it's Tom.city equals Bellevue. Or in this one, it's Linda.city equals Redmond. We're getting that flexibility from it because of how this is written. It's an instance method on a city. And we're saying, hey, whatever person you give me, I'll set their city to me.
So .city really isn't a method then, is it, within the city class?
It's not a method within the city class, it's a method within the person class.
And you can call methods from other classes?
Yes, yes. That is like the big takeaway from this. I was given an object, so I can call any of that object's methods.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. That's the sound I was looking for.
I got it.
I have a question kind of built off of that one. I was trying to do a lab earlier, and I was trying to make my code shorter by writing a function that would just like check if a number was, you know, below or above a certain number. Mm-hmm. And I tried writing that function, since it was just like a class agnostic function, I tried writing it outside of the class.
Yep.
And it wasn't working for me, even though I literally was just taking code that was working written long form that I had to use more than once. Is there a way to do that? Or
make another class for that. This is what like getting into the areas that I don't like about OOP, but you'd make another class called utilities and make all of those class methods. So you'd have something like it takes in some number and then returns number is greater than 5 or whatever. And so then anywhere you want to use that, you would say something like if utilities dot is high and then pass in age or whatever. You'd handle it that way. That's the traditional OOP way to handle something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
So if you're able to call on instant methods from one class to the next, what is the point of doing like inheriting? Like why would you inherit if you can already pull the methods over?
Sure. So inheritance is for things that are shared. This, like nothing is actually shared here. They're still completely separate things. Inheritance would be an is a. So like You might have city as a superclass, and there are types of cities like villages or mega cities or mid-sized cities. And each of those might have different kinds of characteristics to them, but they also might have some things that they share in common. That's when you'd use inheritance. This is two classes talking to each other. That's a little bit different. That's me being able to take in an instance of another class and call its methods and pass things to it, including myself. So those two things have a relationship with each other, but they are not examples of each other. That's what inheritance is. So like you might have a dog class, and then you might have a Saint Bernard class. That's inheritance. Everything that a Saint Bernard is, or everything that a dog is, Saint Bernard also has all of those things. It might also have some other things, like a little whiskey barrel around its neck, that not every dog has, but those shared things are inherited. Great question. What else?
Is it more preferred to make things into classes and then mess with, like, manipulate the data, or just start with like a nested array and just work with that? Like, what's the pros and cons of both?
Sure. In Ruby, classes and instances, and really like any OOP language, Java, C#, you do that stuff the same way. JavaScript, I would actually recommend the opposite approach. Woo, good gravy. And JavaScript, it's not an OOP language. It's an object-capable language. And so I would definitely start with like arrays of hashes and not use any other structure until you actually need to.
Okay.
But the difference is that in Ruby, like when we make hashes, our hashes can't have behavior. All they are is storing the data. And the whole point of objects and classes is that we're keeping our data and the things that we can do with that data in the exact same place. Cool. So if this is like exploding your brain, keep in mind, it's the end of the day on Friday, and like probably one of the most educationally like trying weeks you've ever had. So be patient with yourself. Also, this is the hard thing in Mod 1. If you can get this relationship shit down, like that's basically the entire code challenge. So we're in the ballpark. If you haven't heard this term yet, I'm introducing it to you now, build and burn. So you can take this repo that you got, you can delete all the code, you can clone it down again, you can do whatever you want. I would do this one a few times. You do it till it's just under your fingers. Because much like we've talked about how you can't wrestle something into words and then understand it. It's really the other way around. You're gonna understand it in your head first, and then you're gonna be able to explain it in words. Get this one in like your working memory. So you just have it real quick. And then you're going to be able to reflect on what these patterns are a lot better. And then you're going to come up with some more effective words for what these relationships are. This takes a bit. It's complicated. Be patient with yourself. All right. I'll see you guys in Feelings at 4. Bye.